Yeah, 5 minutes isn't very long to talk. I could talk forever. I picked two slides on this subject, so I'll just be fairly brief. I'm going to talk more on Wednesday as well about these subjects. So, what are we doing right now in Verizon? We've got a lot of product. I'm very lucky in Verizon coming to these conferences because we've gone and invested a lot of money and actually launched some products. So I get to come up and say what we've done, which isn't always the case, as we know. And so very recently we've launched our zero-touch provisioning engine that goes on with our orchestration layer. Is part of our orchestration layer. Of course, orchestration is many things, many capabilities. And we've hit the real world, and this is one of the key things for my talk on Wednesday, that as a service provider, one of the key things is we see, as we all know, it's easy to see the success in a lab, if you like, what works in theory at certain layers, whether it's an application layer, but it's a lot harder to find out, hence the need for the testing. And as was mentioned, a lot of testing now by the service providers, and us included, is to see what really happens when you link this to the networks. And so, for example, one of our first use cases for zero-touch provisioning, this is zero-touch provisioning of one of our UCP white boxes, is across third-party broadband. So what may work well in a lab may not work well for a low-speed broadband service, say in China or somewhere. It could be anywhere really that we don't have control in. So. Another use case, of course, is across our wireless networks. We have another set of problems to solve there. Another use case is actually our own networks, our own MPLS and public IP networks. And what are the sort of issues that we hit? Well, I mean, this slide is kind of a standard one of things that, what was the situation before and after, as you can imagine. But, things like DHCP, things like NATing, firewalls, actual bandwidth, how long does it take to download software? If you're doing patching, we've got a line on maintenance there. Do you patch regularly, or do you, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, sort of thing? And, that's different over low-speed broadband, for example. Do you need to put NATing in? Do you need multiple IP addresses? Do you need to assign some IP addresses up front and have those preloaded in your software layer? We like to ship the boxes with our adverse software preloaded so that when they come up, they find home, and and the process begins. But I think the key message here is you don't know what you don't know until you start testing, and we've certainly learned a lot of lessons there. But we're glad we're well on the road there to delivering that. And by the way, we have to, as has already been mentioned, because of the scale. It's whether it's network slicing in the future in our 5G networks, or whether it's even on plain old broadband and public internet services, people want more of all of this, and that's good news and bad news. So more generally, though, what are the sort of areas that we're looking at for automation? Well, zero touch, and I just mentioned that a little bit, so plenty of work in how we do zero touch, and that's in that initial provisioning. But we've also it's been mentioned here, I was pleased to see closed loop. So we have closed loop automation, closed loop mechanism running in our data centers and on our white boxes. So we take snapshots of the VNFs that the customers ask for on our new assurance platform, which of course has to be linked with our existing physical assurance platform. Just because we're in the virtual world doesn't mean to say we don't have to have that interaction with the existing assurance platforms. But we take snapshots and we monitor the alarms of the virtual layer, etc., and we respin the VNF if there's problems hit. At the moment, we're respinning rather than resizing or moving. We're supposed to be doing that, should I say. That's our basic design, is to respin. These things exist in the data centers, for a long time, but you find there's new issues in the real world, again, that you've got to deal with. When you move a VNF, do you move the license key with it? I'll just leave you with that one, and that depends on the vendor and how that works. We've done some cross-carrier automation. We've done a demo with Colt this year. We've got an API working. We change our bandwidth, changes their network. We did this live. They change it in their portal. We upgrade our bandwidth in our network. So MEF, the LSO framework there, that's important if we're going to get all the carriers working together. And lastly, APIs. APIs are relatively easy to write, and we've all got lots of them. What's important is the policy around it. Do you expose everything? How do you expose it? In fact, if anything, they're going to be the lifeblood going forward, how you control what you expose and how you charge for it. But we certainly have that policy. We certainly have an API framework. We're using Apogee at the moment, and we have customers who don't want anything to do with managing the services, which is great because we like to provide managed services. And we have the others who want to know all about it and want all kinds of levels of control. And we like them because they're normally very big and they pay us lots of money. So we like those customers, but that's an interesting area that we are navigating at the moment. I think that's it for me. I'm going to come in early, which is quite good. This timer tells me, so I'll leave it there and hand you over. Thank you.